I'm not talking about research. I'm not talking about design today. I'm talking about playing your part in some kind of future. And it works. So hello. Andrew decided to take the easy way and not say my last name. My name is Zoe Guiraudon. Yes, I'm French. So just a little bit of context about me, because it's relevant. I'm a senior UX designer at Foolproof and the lead instructor at General Assembly currently. But I started working in digital in 2012, but actually started my journey in marketing. And my academic background has nothing to do with UX to start with. I did advertising and international management, so business school, and then went to UX through General Assembly. In the past 10 years, I lived in France, in Canada, in the US, and in the UK. In other words, I like change. And change is a bit of a passion of mine. And this talk is to convince you why it should be a passion of yours, and tell you how to play your part in it. So change is happening. And even if it's uncomfortable sometimes and can be painful, it has been happening at an exponential pace since the age of time. It is inevitable, not only just because it's all around us, but I'm here to convince you that it's hardwired in you. We have been changing as a species since the beginning. Today, we are facing greater challenges than ever at a global scale, and organizations are slowly taking the measure of the necessary shift needed. So I want to start by talking about an amazing book called Reinventing Organizations, on topic, by Frédéric Laloux. In this book, he explains really well the link between anthropological evolution and organizational evolution. So let's take a look. He describes 5 tiers of organization model that evolved with our, as human, our level of consciousness. Don't worry, I'm going to get into each tier. I'm not letting you trying to decrypt this by yourself. So, first level. The first level of consciousness is also called the red organization. It's tribal. It maintains power through fear and chaos. Okay, think about street gang, mercenary armies, mafia, okay? It's impulsive, and it plays on your survival impulse. The management style is more predator and prey type of style. Problem is you can't really plan for the future because the way the leader is keeping their power is through fear, so as soon as they weaken, the new one comes over and takes over. So that's why the image to illustrate this red organization is a wolf pack. Now, the next one, so we evolved to the amber model, which is also called traditional. Think of armies, the Catholic Church, or any governmental agencies. The power is more authoritarian, so it's top-heavy, and it revolves around security protocol, formal roles, hierarchy. With this evolution, we gained something that we all need, which is hierarchy, and more important, replicable process. So we know something works and we know how to replicate it. But we lacked the ability to innovate. So we evolved. And we went to the next one, the orange model. And this one came about with the Industrial Revolution and the French Enlightenment movement. I'm not saying this because I'm French. It's more scientific, industrial, okay? This model is still relevant today. It's the model of most of our multinationals. It's very task-orientated and profit and growth focus. So with this evolution, we gain innovation, accountability, and meritocracy. You no longer have to depend on your birth in order to thrive in the world. You can deserve and achieve whatever you want to achieve. But we created surplus of consumption. We created the modern world. We created most of the problems we're facing today. So go on to the next. Today we also have green organizations, a postmodern model. It came with the age of information. So it's value-based and it has a motivational management style. It's all about consensus and it has culture at its core. From this is born the stuff we use every day: agile, lean, design thinking. It's illustrated by a family. We've all heard that startup talk. Come work for us, we're all like a big family, okay? That's where it comes from. With this, we gain value-driven culture, empowerment, and stakeholder model. But anyone that works in Agile is a witness to that. It slowed things down slightly. The problem with consensus is consensus. We start designing by committee. The reality of today is that we are oscillating between orange and green. So some companies might be very orange, some might be very green, but in a bigger organization, the reality is you have some departments that work in a very orange way and some departments that work in a very value-driven green model. So what's the next thing? Well, Frédéric Laloux in his book talks about that future, which is teal organization. But what's important to note, I'm not going to go into the detail, but it's not just a far-fetched future, it's already happening. You already have actual case studies and actual companies that are using this model. So what is it? It's self-organizing, it's adaptive, think like cellular. It's a living organism. It's about adapting to the world instead of trying to plan what we think the world is going to be in 1 year, 5 years, and then try to fit our plan to reality. To give you a concrete example, who here had to work on a project, read the brief, had your stakeholder interviews, and knew that fundamentally what was asked of you was the wrong thing to do at this time? But what you had in return when you offered this piece of insight was, well, budget has already been given, it's already been planned, it's already in a pipeline, we have to carry on. This is fighting this mindset. With this evolution, we thrive to self-management, wholeness, and evolutionary purpose. So we are just starting that journey, but it's a very necessary one. It's the journey where through stopping treating the workforce like children that needs to be managed, we're redistributing challenges. We create trust. We create a more fulfilling workplace that allows us to not just thinking about what we need to do today, but what we need to do for tomorrow. And a big thank you to Renato and Dan to give me amazing case studies to what I'm about to say. So, they all build on each other. They all enable the next one. And it's not so much about which level of development is better than the other, but more which one is the right one for the task at hand. And the challenges we are facing today are more and more complex, more and more global, and ever-changing, so we need to be able to adapt at anything that is thrown at us. Also, if you look at this diagram, remember when I was saying that change is going at an exponential pace? Well, the last change, like 3 changes ago, it took us 100 years to get there, then 10 years, then a year. So be comfortable with change because it's not going to slow down. Everyone's talking about it these days. It's all materializing in that weird concept. I could not do a talk about change without talking of digital transformation. So do not switch off. I have a point. Digital transformation. I really like this definition. So it is the integration of digital technology in all areas of business, fundamentally changing how you operate and deliver value to customers. Yeah, okay, digital. But here's the really interesting part, and here's why digital transformation should not be called anything digital. It's also cultural change that requires organizations to continually challenge the status quo, experiment, and get comfortable with failure. And that's how you play your part in the future of organizations. You experiment, you challenge the status quo, you get comfortable with failure. In other words, the most exciting breakthrough of the 21st century will not occur because of technology, but because of an expanding concept of what it means to be human. Let's stop micromanaging the workforce. A big question a few people have asked, though, is, remember we were talking about self-management just before, does that mean no management? I know it's quite controversial to ask this in a conference like that. So is the new world a world without management? Well, don't worry, no one's going to lose their job. The answer is no. Google tried it and it failed. So if Google says it, it must be true. In 2002, Google experimented with a completely flat organization, removing all managers, engineering managers. That experiment only lasted a few months. Too many people went directly to Larry Page about stuff about expenses or like interpersonal conflict, all the nitty-gritty. And they soon realized that as the company grew, actually managers have a much bigger impact than the nitty-gritty of every day. They're here to help prioritize projects, communicating strategy, help you in developing your career, and foster collaboration across the company. So, they took all the learnings from this experiment and repackaged it in a project called Project Oxygen in 2008. And they stopped looking at what a word would be without managers, but actually what makes a great manager. And they came up with 8 principles that they recently revisited and became 10. Some of those principles are a great manager is a good coach, creates inclusive team environment, and is concerned for the success and well-being of his team, foster collaboration, have clear vision and strategy, and actually has real skills that he or she expects from their team. Anyway, thank you, Google. We now know that the future is not about a world without management. But we need to rethink management. So let's go back to that self-management talk that Frédéric Laloux talks about. What does it mean if it's not a world without managers? Well, he talks about servant leaders. But those servant leaders are not serving the employees. They're serving the evolutionary purpose of the company. And additionally, by stopping thinking of people like children that needs to be managed, we take the assumption that they have everything to empower themselves and they have so much to give to the company if you just give them the right environment and the tool to ask for what they need. It's not about thinking about what they would need in order to deliver what they need to deliver, but let them be the judge of what they need to deliver and give them the tool to ask for what they need. In order to create that environment where everyone in the company contributes to the evolutionary purpose of the company, you need trust in the business at all levels to enable self-management. The whole company needs to be aware of the constraints we are playing with. Yeah, I'm not talking about an utopia here. And 3, and most importantly, everyone needs to be aware of our evolutionary purpose, in other words, our vision. So I wanted to share a recent example that I found fascinating. Orbia is a chemical company, so bad guys, right? And their newly appointed CEO described what they just went through as a human-centered business transformation. And they completely shifted the purpose and the vision of the company to reflect the biggest challenges that we are facing today as human beings. So they have done something I find really fascinating with the logo, which, by the way, they don't call a logo, but an impact mark. The logo is actually a living organism, and it's shifting as their company is shifting and reaching their goals. And it's illustrating their purpose. This is assuring that not only everyone in the company knows where they're heading and what they need to do to head there, but everyone that comes in contact with this company or just the logo. It means that people are ready to create or seize opportunity to innovate whenever it presents itself. And that leads me on personal opinion, which is we cannot foster change or create change without innovation, and we cannot have innovation without experimentation. So Google has done amazing work lately about innovation, and they published 2 book guidelines on their rework website. One is foster an innovative workplace, and the other one is practice innovation with design thinking. It boils down to encouraging ownership and creativity, which kind of feels like self-management to me. Then it's all about having a shared vision, giving autonomy to people, create intrinsic motivation. We shouldn't have to move heavens and earth to motivate people. Enabling risk-taking, and creates meaningful connection to foster collaboration. And all of this needs to be done while understanding the context in which you're playing. And we do this through empathy, ideation, and experimentation. This should all sound so familiar to all of you. It's all the stuff that we know and we use in our practice every day. So listen to the signs the universe is sending us. All this stuff is happening. All the research is occurring itself. We just need to do it now. So this talk is called Play Your Part in the Future of Organizations and has been abbreviated as Play Your Part. So let me tell you how you can play your part. And you all know the formula already. Sounds familiar? Design thinking mindset. So be aware of the context in which you're trying to create change. What is feasible today? What can you do today? You need to know this so well that anyone can throw anything at you and you'll be able to adapt. Get empathy for the people that will be affected by the change you're trying to create. Why has it not been done before? Has it been tried before? Why did it fail? How can we make this a win-win-win situation? How can we create positive outcome all around? Do something that is viable and scalable. So the few steps that you need to follow is learning from failure. So what has been done before? What did it fail? Apply scientific method. Identify a problem, create a hypothesis, create an experiment, test it, get the data from that experiment, learn from it, repeat. But in order to do this, you need to actually make an experiment. And it doesn't have to be something big, just something small enough that you get some results or you try and get traction. So don't forget to then present it to the right people. And forget about asking permission. It's just the first experiment needs to be small enough that you don't need anyone's approval to try it. Embrace ambiguity. The reality is you don't know where it's going to end up. Like, you don't know what's going to be the end result. That's okay. That's part of change. And be optimistic. To create change, you need to be optimistic about your ability to come up with a solution. Optimism is what is driving you forward in the challenge. It is the art of possibility. If you don't believe it yourself, it's going to be hard to convince anyone else. It's also about Carol Dweck's famous growth mindset. Show of hands here, who in the past month have heard something from a client or colleague when asked why they do the things they do like that, or I don't know, it's always been like that, or it's just the way it is. Yes, that's our job, right? We need to combat that fixed mindset that is saying to people that they need to work with the cards they are dealt with today. That is simply not true. The reality is we're not playing with the resources we have today, not only, we're also playing with the resources we will have tomorrow. So know that if something is not feasible today, it can become feasible tomorrow as a result of your action. And if we want to create change at an organizational level, at a group level, we need to create change individually. So one of the key skills in order to create change in your life or anywhere, it's self-awareness. When I teach my course at GI, I get my students to fill self-awareness survey at the end, towards the end, and ask a few questions like, so where have you been? What was your life before coming into that transformation course? Where are you now? And where do you want to be? And ask them, how do you want to feel in 6 months, a year, and 5 years? And when I ask students at GA how they want to feel in 6 months, they all say the same thing, stable. They've just spent a lot of money and time into that transformation. So then we work together on what is stable and what are the steps you can take to feel stable. Remember, what are you good at? And the full scale, not just UX, because I've just done a course. What I'm not good at, but I actually want to improve. What is important to me and why it's not. And by answering this question, you're actually creating your transformation narrative and creating your plan to create change. So here are the elements on how to affect change in your organizations. Like I said, we all know them. With design thinking, remember to embrace ambiguity and optimism. Identify one problem. Learn from those failures in your own failures and your company's failures, and create a hypothesis. Create an experiment, something that is low effort, high impact, and forget about asking permission and actually test that first experiment. Get feedback, present the results, get buy-in, and repeat at scale. Remember that what is not feasible today can be feasible tomorrow as a result of your actions, and take ownership of that. Know your worth, know where you need help and get it, ask for it. Know where you have been and learn from it, and know where you're heading, even if it's a bit fuzzy. So there you have it. For me, design thinking and growth mindset is all about experimentation. And we've already talked a lot about experimentation in our 2 previous talks. So that's why, thank you. So if we take experimentation plus self-awareness, I believe that we have the key to successful and scalable change. It's all about crafting your experiments. So who am I to tell you this? I'm not a head of, I'm not a director, I'm not a founder, but that's the point, okay? You do not need to be at that level to create change, and you do not need to wait for that level's permission to create change. So if I leave you with one thing, is go vote, but apart from that, change is like an election. It will happen anyway, with or without you. You might as well have an impact on the outcome. I had to put a French author. Nothing is as powerful as an idea whose time has come. If you look around us, this conference, the news, your company, change is happening. So we've never been so ready to embrace it. Just go for it. Go on and do it. Create change in your organization, in your life. If you want to make a change in your career and go do change with us at Foolproof, we're hiring all level across all the roles. So be in contact through our career page or talk to me. Wake up, kick ass, repeat. Thank you.
Zoe, thank you so much. Do you have time for questions? Okay, we have time. We've got a good amount of time for some questions for Zoe. So does anybody want to ask Zoe a question after that fantastic talk? Okay, there's a gentleman at the back there. You can stand here. Yeah. We're just going to take the mic to you so everyone can hear the question.
Hi, my name is James. You talked about the fact that the green organization, the value-based model, built around consensus, and consensus was the problem. And then you talked about the teal organization potentially solving that. I didn't quite get the detail around how it solves that. I think you talked a bit about data-centered or following the scientific process, but you still need to convince people, and who do you convince in that area? So a bit more detail on that would be great.
Yes, so I actually didn't go into much detail into that. Into specifically consensus in the teal organization. Basically, consensus is not a problem, but the way we put consensus on a pedestal is. So it's consensus at all cost. The teal organization is talking about we have an evolutionary purpose, so a purpose that is taking consideration everything, so our planet, our company, people in this company, so we're really micro, macro. And this evolutionary purpose should be, everyone should be aware of it. And in if you take the concepts of self-management and the concept of the cellular living organism, it's the idea that everything is interconnected. And we all have the power to affect something, affect the evolutionary purpose ourselves or in our team. But then instead of getting consensus and buy-in from the top, and instead of being blocked by, oh, everyone needs to agree, or we need to approve that before we experiment, we start with the experiment, and we let the experiment talking for itself. And we showcase that experiment to everyone, and it's more of a voting system. In the book, he goes through a few case studies that are more democratic type of way of deciding where you go than just everyone need to approve what we're doing and where we're heading. Does this answer your question?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Zoe? Great.
Hi Zoe. Very nice talk. You mentioned a couple of times about embracing ambiguity. Would you like to give us some examples that have worked for you, or some practical advice about how to do that?
Yeah. So, thank you. So, we're in a research day, and we all know about the fog, right? So, when you get into research, I know that I've been doing research for a while, but I still have that, oh my God, I have no idea what we're about to do. That little slight panic, because it's worrying for us to enter into a process without knowing what the exact outcome is. And my background is in agency, I've always worked in agency. It's really hard for us to sell work, because like, well, okay, so you wanna do this. Yeah, it could be that outcome, but it could also not, because research is going to tell us, we do evidence-based design, right? Research is going to tell us where we should go. And so that's this idea of just embrace it, lean into that ambiguity, accept that it is part of the process, and this is often what stops us to start something, the fact that we don't know where we're going to end up. And all I'm saying is recognize that this is sometimes what stops you and try to power through that ambiguity. Does that answer your question? Cool, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions for Zoe? It's very bright up here, so we can't always see your hands. I'm just going to make sure.
They want to go to lunch.
No. Please give a massive... Oh, do you have a question? No? You sure? Going once? Oh, fantastic. One more question, and then we'll back.
That was the rehearsal for the upload. Well done.
Did really good.
So I wanted to learn a little bit more how you have implemented that foolproof, and when did you start using this model, and to what extent do you go? Is it fully democratic process, or do you implement some aspects of it but not the others?
Okay, so yeah, so the honest answer, and I haven't fully implemented it, but I'm lucky to be in an organization that is listening. When the little story, the little anecdote is, so I don't know if you guys know Tim Kane, he was at UX Live before last year, and he interviewed me, and I think one of the last thing I told him before I left the interview was, just so you know, if I have a massive passion for change, if you hire me, I'll be a pain. And you need to be okay with that, because I will not change that. And I've been doing this since then. I've been a pain. I think Foolproof is willing to just listen and experiment as long as you can talk about the value. And as designers, researchers, even like any role in the company, we have creative freedom to create an experiment. But that experiment, again, it's not an utopia, so that experiment needs to fit within our constraints, it needs to fit within the purpose of the company. So if we can create something small and then get it in front of people that can help us scale it, 90% of the time they will help us scale it. And I just have a recent example where we had a lot of training with research within Foolproof, because initially we were research-based, and I just wanted to have some design training. And I had this idea, and I created a small experiment that went well. I'd done my own research, completely rogue, presented that to my creative director, and then they allowed me to do a bigger training, and then we have more. And I think it's just about finding a company where you're just listened to. And if you have that, then you have the creative freedom to just try, and that's all you need to create change, try.
Yeah, I think that's so true, and I think we've all been at organizations where that's the case. Please give a massive round of applause to Zoe. Thank you.